So this morning I wanted to share with you about take what they want. Maybe to help us visualize that in a big way is in the 5th century A.D., the armies of Attila the Hun, they fearlessly raided cities of the Roman Empire, and they took what they want. In the late 1800s, gangs like Butch Cassidy's Wild Bunch, they robbed stores and stages and banks and trains, and they took what they want. And I suppose throughout history there's been countless number of tyrants, dictators like Stalin, that in the first half of the 20th century, had by conservative estimates, had 20 million people, and some say that the actual numbers are closer to 3 times that. Possibly 60 million people done away with just to take what they want. Do you know the Bible has some things to say about those who take what they want? And it has some relevant instruction for us. It has encouragement. And there's even direct warning from Jesus. And so this morning I want us to look at these things. I want us to look first at the book of Samuel, because it shows us that even those who have been appointed to positions of service for God can fall to taking what they want. And it's found in Samuel 2. We'll look at verses 12 through 18. Now the sons of Eli were corrupt. They did not know the Lord. And the priest's custom with the people was that when any man offered a sacrifice, the priest's servant would come with a 3-pronged flesh hook in his hand while the meat was boiling. Then he would thrust it into the pan or kettle or cauldron or pot, and the priest would take for himself all that the flesh hook brought up. So they did in Shiloh to all the Israelites who came there. Also, before they burned the fat, the priest's servant would come and say to the man who sacrificed, "Give meat for roasting to the priest, for he will not take boiled meat from you, but raw." And if the man said to him, "They should really burn the fat first, then you may take as much as your heart desires," he would then answer him, "No, but you must give it now, and if not, I will take it by force." Therefore the sin of the young men was very great before the Lord, for the men abhorred the offering of the Lord. But Samuel ministered before the Lord, even as a child, wearing a linen ephod. We read about these men that were priests. These sacrifices that were brought to the Lord, the fat was supposed to be burned. It was supposed to be a sweet-smelling offering, a sacred and holy thing, so that the people could enjoy fellowship drawing near to God. But they took what they want. If we keep looking, it tells us God's response to this in verses 34 and 35. "Now this shall be a sign to you that will come upon your 2 sons, on Hophni and Phinehas. In one day they shall die, both of them. Then I will raise up for myself a faithful priest who shall do according to what is in my heart and in my mind. I will build him a sure house, and he shall walk before my anointed forever." Samuel was going to be the one that fulfilled this. So we see that even in serving the Lord, there are those who fall to taking what they want. And the Apostle Paul, in several of his letters, warned about a coming time when believers will turn away from the truth of Christ. And if we look at what Paul wrote to Timothy, it's in 2 Timothy 4, verses 3 and 4. "For the time will come when they will not endure sound doctrine, but according to their own desires. Because they have itching ears, they will heap up for themselves teachers, and they will turn their ears away from the truth and be turned aside to fables. Did you catch the part that by their desires, it will cause them to take what they want and neglect truth? Isn't that what Paul just said was going to happen? That because of their desires, they'll take what they want. They'll get their own teachers that tell them what they want to hear, and they'll neglect, turn away from truth. When we begin to investigate the fall of man in Genesis 3, isn't that what happened? Isn't it the same thing when we look and for all that was in the garden, there's only one tree that was forbidden, and that's because it would bring death. Genesis 3 verse 6 tells us this: "So when the woman saw that the tree was good for food, that it was pleasant to the eyes, and a tree desirable to make one wise, she took of its fruit and ate. She also gave to her husband with her, and he ate." Isn't it the same thing, putting their own desires over the Word of God, over truth, so that they can take what they want? That's what happened. Now, when we look at all of this together, I suppose that we can conclude that it's a fact that we will be confronted by people who reject truth and take what they want. I don't think you can live in this world and not be confronted with people who reject truth and take what they want. The Bible gives us some instruction and some encouragement for these times, because we will be confronted by people who reject truth and take what they want. The Old Testament Psalms speaks directly to these occasions when we are confronted by people that take what they want. And interestingly enough, the two Psalms that we're going to look at, they have the same numbers in them. They're just inverted. It's Psalms 37 and Psalms 73. They both have a similar truth, and they have instruction for us. And so I want us to look to Psalms 37. And as we look there, I want us to take note of the first 8 verses, or 9 verses actually. "Do not fret because of evildoers, nor be envious of the workers of iniquity, for they shall soon be cut down like the grass, wither as the green herb. Trust in the Lord and do good. Dwell in the land and feed on his faithfulness. Delight yourself also in the Lord, and he shall give you the desires of your heart. Commit your way to the Lord. Trust also in him, and he shall bring it to pass. He shall bring forth your righteousness as the light, and your justice as the noonday. Rest in the Lord and wait patiently for him. Do not fret because of him who prospers in his way, because of the man who brings wicked schemes to pass. Cease from anger and forsake wrath. Do not fret. It only causes harm." Now, 2 times there's the instruction, don't fret. And if you investigate that word a little bit, fret means like rubbing a rope until it starts to fray and it gets hot before it comes apart. I won't ask for a show of hands, but have you ever been confronted with someone that was taking what they wanted and it made you hot? Maybe to the point where rational and logic actions started to come apart. We're instructed 2 times here, don't fret. And there's a lot of instruction here. Trust in the Lord. Delight yourself in the Lord. Commit yourself to the Lord. Rest in the Lord. And then if you continue reading, and I would encourage you to read all of Psalms 37 and all of Psalms 73 this week. In between here and the end of the chapter that we'll look at in just a minute, there's instruction again and again and again about those who take what they want. They're going to be judged. And it doesn't just say it once or twice. It repeats itself multiple times. We get to verses 39 and 40. But the salvation of the righteous is from the Lord. He is their strength in the time of trouble. And the Lord shall help them and deliver them. He shall deliver them from the wicked and save them because they trust in him. There's promised salvation, help, and deliverance. So that's what we've looked at in Psalms 37. Let's look to Psalms 73 and we'll see one who is facing a different kind of challenge. When we look at verses 1 through 9, truly God is good to Israel, to such as are pure in heart. But as for me, my feet had almost stumbled. My steps had nearly slipped, for I was envious of the boastful when I saw the prosperity of the wicked. For there are no pangs in their death, but their strength is firm. They are not in trouble as other men, nor are they plagued like other men. Therefore pride serves as their necklace. Violence covers them like a garment. Their eyes bulge with abundance. They have more than heart could wish. They scoff and speak wickedly concerning oppression. They speak loftily. They set their mouth against the heavens, and their tongue walks through the earth. Wow. This one is concluded. They're envious. He's envious at them because he's concluded they're getting away with it. Look at verses 12, 13. Behold, these are the ungodly who are always at ease. They increase in riches. Surely I've cleansed my heart in vain and washed my hands in innocence. Verse 16. When I thought how to understand this, it was too painful for me. When he thought about this, the only conclusion that came to him was they're getting away with it. They're taking what they want and they get away with it. I want us to note that the change comes to him in verse 17, and it's the result of a deliberate choice to draw near to God. Look at verse 17. Until I went into the sanctuary of God, then I understood their end. He made a choice to draw near to God, and then the realization of truth came to him. And as we look at verses 18 through 28, surely you set them in slippery places. You cast them down to destruction. Oh, how they are brought to desolation as in a moment. They are utterly consumed with terrors. As a dream when one awakes, so, Lord, when you awake, you shall despise their image. Thus my heart was grieved, and I was vexed in my mind. I was so foolish and ignorant, I was like a beast before you. Nevertheless, I am continually with you. You hold me by your right hand. You will guide me with your counsel, and afterward receive me to glory. Whom have I in heaven but you? And there is none upon earth that I desire beside you. My flesh and my heart fail, but God is the strength of my heart and my portion forever. For indeed, those who are far from you shall perish. You have destroyed all those who desert you for harlotry. But it is good for me to draw near to God. I have put my trust in the Lord God, that I may declare all your works. The change that came to him, the understanding of the reality, they are not getting away with it. They are not getting away with it, and God keeps us and guides us and blesses us. All that understanding came to him when he made a deliberate choice to draw near to God, to go to the sanctuary. So we see that the Psalms instruct us that we are not to be anxious, we're not to be frustrated, we're not to be envious by those who take what they want. And if we somehow conclude that they're getting away with it, well, that's a denial of both God's holy character and his unfailing word. When we come to a conclusion that they are getting away with taking what they want, then we've denied God's holy character and his unfailing word. We need to recognize they're not getting away with it. Just because we don't see the results instantaneously does not mean they're getting away with it. Now, as we ponder that, I want us to note that the Gospels record Jesus giving his followers special instructions, warnings about the end times right before he comes back. How relevant might that be to us? Instruction that's for the followers of Christ right before he comes back. And the Gospels have Matthew, Mark, and Luke all have very similar instruction that Jesus is giving, and I want us to look at it. I want us to take note of what Jesus says, the instruction and the emphasis and the relevance for us. Matthew 24, I want us to look at verses 44 through 49. Therefore, you also be ready, for the Son of Man is coming at an hour you do not expect. Who then is a faithful and wise servant whom his master made ruler over his household to give them food in due season? Blessed is that servant whom his master, when he comes, will find so doing. Assuredly, I say to you that he will make him ruler over all his goods. But if that evil servant says in his heart, my master is delaying his coming, and begins to beat his fellow servants and to eat and drink with the drunkards, he gives warning about the ones that might say, my master's delaying, concluding that he's not going to be here soon. It's going to be a while. And then beats his fellow servants and fellowships with drunks. How many of us know believers, people that claim to be believers, and they would rather spend time in fellowship at the bar than in church? Jesus said this. Jesus said this. He went on, and it's recorded in Mark 13, verses 33 to 36. Take heed, watch and pray, for you do not know when the time is. It's like a man going to a far country who left his house and gave authority to his servants to each his work and commanded the doorkeeper to watch. Watch therefore, for you do not know when the master of the house is coming, in the evening, at midnight, at the crowing of the rooster, or in the morning, lest coming suddenly he find you sleeping. And what I say to you, I say to all, watch. He delegated duties to them. In verse 34, gave authority to his servants to each his work and commanded the doorkeeper to watch. So the one that fell asleep, it wasn't just a matter of being tired and falling asleep. It was a matter of neglect of responsibility. It was a matter of dereliction of duty. It was a deliberate choice to neglect the duty that had been given to him. Do you know that we've been given responsibilities by Christ? Things that each of us are to be faithful doing until he comes. Are we being faithful? Or have we made a willful choice to neglect the duty that Christ has given to us? If we keep looking at Luke 21, it records Jesus saying this, verses 34 to 36. But take heed to yourselves, lest your hearts be weighed down with carousing, drunkenness, and cares of this life, and that day come on you unexpectedly. For it will come as a snare on all those who dwell on the face of the earth. Watch therefore and pray always, that you may be counted worthy to escape all these things that will come to pass, and to stand before the Son of Man. Did you catch? He said, take heed to yourself. That means it's a personal responsibility. It's a personal responsibility not to let your heart be weighed down. He equated the cares of this life with sin, like carousing and drunkenness. He equated the cares of this life with that and said, don't let your hearts be weighed down. You know, there are those that may be looking at those who take what they want. Because certainly we're surrounded by those who take what they want. And then because they see this, they let their hearts get weighed down. They get anxious. They get frustrated. I won't ask for a show of hands because mine will be right there with yours. I see these things. I get anxious. I get frustrated. But remember, they aren't getting away with it. They aren't getting away with it, and if we conclude that they are, then we're having to deny the holy character of Christ. We're having to deny the unfailing word if we're going to conclude that they're getting away with it. Yeah, there are those who take what they want. And there are those who reject truth to go take what they want, to fulfill their own desires. But their judgment is surely coming. We've been instructed to be faithful to the end. Remember, Psalms 37 tells us to trust in the Lord, to commit ourselves to the Lord, to delight ourselves in the Lord, to rest in the Lord. It's a time for us to remember his love for us that was shown by his sacrifice for us. And that's what we do at communion. But during this time, it's a good time to recommit ourselves to being faithful to the end. It's a good time to remember how much he loved us and how much he sacrificed for us. It's a good time for us to recommit ourselves to trust in him, to delight in him, to commit ourselves to him, to rest in him, no matter if others are getting away with it, taking what they want. But that we're going to be found faithful to the end.